Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live. Now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio through IBGR, the world's #1 business talk, news, and strategy radio network. Today, we're discussing why allyship is just the beginning. We have a special guest, Cohen Leon Daly, to help us with the discussion. Cohen brings a wealth of experience from his work as DEI advocate and leader in the tech space. His practical insights and lived experiences offer a compelling roadmap for organizations looking to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion at a deeper level. But before we bring Cohen on, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend? Ping them and have them join us. We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, and audience participation is highly encouraged. With that, let's start introductions. Tim, would you kick us off, please?
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book, Social Selling, Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and welcome. Bertrand.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bertrand Godillot. I am the founder and managing partner of Odysseus & Co., a very proud DLA Ignite partner, and I'm so glad it's Friday.
Amen to that. Thank you. Tracy.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Tracy Borison from TLB Coaching and Events, your friendly neighborhood marketers, where we help people do marketing right. Also a proud partner of DLA Ignite. And I am super excited for this conversation today. I expect to learn much that I can hopefully take away and bring back to the world.
Fantastic. Thank you. Adam.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, so Tim's business partner. And like Tracy, very much looking forward to today's event.
Excellent. And myself, I'm Rob Durant. I am founder of Flywheel Results. We help startups scale. And I, too, am a proud DLA Ignite partner. As I said, this week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with Cohen Leon Daly, founder of the Equity in Tech Group. He will share insights from his journey as a first-generation British Jamaican and his work in transforming organizational cultures. Let's bring him on. Cohen.
Hey, Cohen.
Good morning and welcome. Cohen, we've suddenly lost your audio.
No, I was on mute.
There we go.
I'm actually a little bit more organized. This is my third podcast in about 2 weeks. My first one, I was using my AirPods, awful quality. But now I have a mic, I have a headset, I have a mute button. I should be crystal clear.
Fantastic.
As long as you're not on mute.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. Absolutely. I was hoping during COVID, I was actually going to get a T-shirt saying you're on mute. Because I say it to my teams constantly, but I never got around to doing it. But it's definitely someone out there should definitely create that tee. It'll work.
Oh, that's so 2020.
Yeah, it's old school now, right?
Exactly.
Still, we're doing it.
Yes. Cohen, let's start by having you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and what led you to where you are today.
Sure. So I guess I'll start with Equity and Tech Group, really. I was made redundant earlier on this year in February for the 5th or 6th time. And I realized that actually, where am I going in my career? What am I doing? And I guess I was driving or pushing for title, for salary, and those types of benefits without actually feeling any contentment or any happiness. So the more I grew, more I got higher, more senior, got to board level, looking after entities or countries, closing millions and millions of dollars, and felt absolutely nothing at all. I'm fortunate enough to be in the Salesforce ecosystem, and their Talent Alliance and Careers cohort approached me and said, look, we're going to do a black cohort for the first time, which is when they get underprivileged groups the opportunity to get into tech through certifications, coaching, and mentoring. I was like, great, I'll run that cohort for you. I did that, and it's a pro bono gig, and I got more from that than anything I've done in my whole career. So all of a sudden, something went off and was like, wow, I found my why. I actually know what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's not money, it's not title. It's actually helping people. And it's helping people from groups that look like me, where I've struggled, found it a challenge, and kind of been on an uphill battle with my mental health and just trying to exist in tech. It's very much a difficult thing to do. So I found my why, and I started Equity in Tech Group to do that. Our mission, FY25, is to get 1,000 people from Africa or Jamaican heritage into tech. And I guess to support that, I've got lots of different roles. So being in sales for 28 years, I have built lots of partnerships, whether I'm a co-founder or a non-executive director or a brand ambassador. So I do that through either fractional roles as a fractional CRO. I do that either with companies like Sidewave, who have got an incredible platform for digital assets and Web 2, Web 3, etc. Or my VIP and hospitality brand, where I can send you anywhere in the world to any event, VIP style. And all of these things pay for my pro bono stuff and Equity in Tech. Hopefully, next funding and get grants that will enable us to do even more and really change the status quo and help even more people into tech, which is kind of what I'm trying to do.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So let's start the conversation with a foundational question. What do you mean by allyship?
Okay. So without allyship, I literally wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today. So allyship is kind of raising your hand and doing things. It's kind of being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Often in the workplace or even in life, we see things that we know instinctively are wrong or doesn't quite agree with us, and we often don't say anything. Allyship is stepping up for people that can't step up for themselves or aren't able to without any consequences to you or to them. And for me in particular, allyship has been really through my career, I've had allies. So either someone in a senior position that I've worked in, or someone that saw something they didn't think was right, or how I was treated. And allyship meant that I could use them as a confidant. I could use them to kind of chew the fat about how I felt. They would help me move roles or get other opportunities without anyone knowing. And these people often aren't in HR or even your management. They're just people that see something to think, you know what, that's wrong. Like, I want to help. I use allyship in different ways. I'm an ally for women in tech, for example. I'm an ally for people from all underrepresented groups. Not necessarily, I don't speak for them, but I definitely will give them a platform or support them. So sometimes people get that mixed up. And I'll give you an example. I was working with, because we know often in employees, the DEI person will be someone that's gay or someone that is not white, and they just put you in this group without any kind of understanding of what that means. So me and this gay chap were in this group, and he was so passionate about supporting me, he was trying to make me celebrate Black History Month on the wrong day. So in the US, it's in March time. In the UK, it's obviously in October. And he was so passionate to try and help me, but I was like, dude, this isn't when I celebrate it. That's the American month. But he got really upset, but that's where allyship went too far, because he was really, not understanding, the root causes of it and what he was trying to do, but he meant well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if I'm hearing you correctly, what I hear is an ally is somebody who is supporting you,
Yeah.
maybe even encouraging you, but they're typically not from the same group that represents you.
Exactly that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why it's so important to have allyship, because if you're in a country where you're a minority, or if you're in a group where you're the minority, without allyship, you're pretty much on your own. And that can make the office or work environments really tough, because you're already trying to go uphill anyway. And without allyship, it's even harder, because you're even more isolated, and you're even more unable to do, what you do best, because you're inhibited to be yourself. And that goes nicely into covering, which we'll talk about later on.
So allyship sounds pretty good. It sounds like, people, for a simplistic term, and maybe not even the best term, but the one that comes to mind, people coming to your defense, people supporting you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, right? Because sometimes, it's like almost going back to school, right, or uni. You get these kind of cults of groups that run the office, or everyone goes to lunch with this person, or everyone plays golf with this chap or this girl, and you kind of get these hives. Now, if you're not in that group or hive, you might not get the promotion, you might not get the opportunities that other people get. Now, imagine if you're in this environment and you're female, or you're black, or you have a different religion to the main hive, you're even more of an outlier. So it's very difficult to even get a chance to be in that. Now, someone in that hive can recognize you and support you and bring you into conversations, not let people speak over you, can bring your CV into conversations around being promoted. It really changes your life. My mentors and allies through my career have literally changed my life in regards to the jobs I've got, the interviews I've had, the opportunities I've got within placements, and why I've been promoted so extensively is only because of the allies. And without them, I literally wouldn't be here today.
So this episode is called Why Allyship is Just the Beginning. To me,
Yeah.
that implies there's more.
I think there is, because, and sorry to talk you, Rob, is that people are almost, for example, I'll give you an example. In the Me Too campaign and everything was going on, when you see, for example, an actor like Ben Affleck, right, stood up and said, "Hey, I think this is wrong. Let's look at this." And as soon as he did that, a lot of people shut him down, because, I don't know, back in the day, he did something to a female, shouted, and he got shut down really quick, which makes people inhibited to say anything, because they're scared they're going to do something wrong. We're so over PC now. Can I say black? Is it coloured? And I could go on about the plethora of things we can or can't or should or shouldn't say. People are confused. So if the majority group are confused, it's hard to become an ally, because you don't know whether you're sticking your leg in the right place or not. So you have to be quite a confident, normally a senior person, to be an ally, because people don't want to lose their job. People don't want to lose their opportunities because they're speaking up for you. And that's kind of the hard truth of it. So it's just the beginning, because we need more allies, not just senior leaders, and we need more allies across all roles and across all different underrepresented groups.
You said something I want to pick up on. You said, sure. We've become over PC. I'm going to come back to that, but I think Tim had something that he wanted to ask.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was at an allyship event just a couple of weeks ago at Zoom. And it was really interesting, because there was one of the people on the panel. She was black, and she was probably about my age, and she said that she was incredibly successful, and she said that every single step in her journey that got her to where she was today, she'd been supported by a white man.
Yeah.
And I think that quite often what happens is that gets lost in the discussion about DEI, because we think, the conversations are a lot about positive discrimination and stuff like that. And I think that what white people forget is that actually we have a job to do to enable to bring everybody up to our level in terms of the privilege that we've had in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, that's a really it's a difficult conversation to have. And there's lots of variables around that, and how comfortable someone is in their own skin, and also how they've been raised and their education. A lot of it is based on ignorance and people being naive, and not people that are cruel or that want to hurt people. Often it's just about people that understand. And that goes into, put your hand raised and then getting it burned, and you put your hand down again. And I don't think that the white people have a job or they have to do anything. I think it's around any person from a minority group that I know don't want the chance because they're from a minority group. We just want to be at the table. We just want the opportunity. So we don't want extra chances or handout. We just want the opportunities the same as everybody else. And that, from people from poor white backgrounds can be underprivileged and not have chances that wealthy people have, right? When it comes to schooling, when it comes to getting a GP or being hired, this isn't necessarily just a race thing. So, being an ally, you can be an ally even if it's peer-to-peer, white to white, right? You see someone that is not being treated correctly or bullied or not having the same opportunities, it's just stepping up and doing the right thing based on your conscience, regardless of if it affects you or not, which is hard to do because in this climate, right, we see thousands of people being laid off, thousands of people that are unemployed. I was recently doing a DEI talk at an organization, and there were only 2 black employees that worked there. One of them had very much a mental health disorder, and the other one felt really guilty because she felt like she couldn't support her because she didn't want to get fired. So she just didn't say anything. And she felt absolutely awful about it. But also, she's like, I'm a single person. I've got my own mortgage. I also don't want to not be able to pay my rent. So, there's a plethora of reasons here. People can't just assume, oh, you're a woman, you're going to help a woman, or because you're a guy, you're going to help a guy, or because you're black, you help black, or if you're disabled, you're going to help a disabled person. It often doesn't work like that, So it is a complex subject, but hopefully, talking about it openly, where there's no stupid questions or answers, and we're all going to be coming from a good place, I'm hoping that we can help change that.
Yeah, one of the things that's coming up for me, Cohen, is this concept of I don't actually know what I want to call it, but it's like the ability for an individual person to move forward through a quote unquote failure. So maybe resilience is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, resilience is huge.
Yeah, because if I have totally done this. I will admit it, right? I have shown up in what I thought was allyship to learn that was not allyship. And I think it's important to be able to learn those things, though, because if we are coming from this place of being uneducated and inexperienced in what it looks like to be an ally, then we're probably going to make a mistake at some point in doing that. And there has to be that level of commitment to want to show up to do that so that you can move through it and be like, wow, I did not get it right in that scenario. Yeah. And for one, I'm super grateful for the people who have provided me with that feedback, because now I can be a better ally.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't get that feedback, I would continue to make the same mistake. But there's wow, I got that one really wrong. And I don't want to continue to get it wrong. So how do I keep moving forward?
I think one of the things that I've seen, so I spoke to over 50 DEI leaders this year, and not one of them had budget. Often they were returning from maternity or in HR roles, and they were given those roles without any direction at all. So when I spoke to them about me having a DEI framework, they were like, great, please send it to me because I don't even know what that is. So that shows you, one, whether leaders are really serious about it or whether it's just like a token gesture, which we find happening a lot. And also, in these groups, if you don't have someone from a different group in your group, how on earth are they going to understand what you're going through every day? I.e., if you have a women in tech group, sorry, ladies, you're going to have a guy in that group. Because they don't understand what you go through every day. They don't feel what you feel, see your emotion, hear your challenges. How can they help? The same as if it's a black group. The same if it's a LGBTQ plus group. You need someone in there that isn't like that. You need someone in there to hear your challenges, that isn't like you. And that's how you get allyship. I go to talks with all groups, and I'm like shocked at their history, their challenges, because it's not mine. I don't know their history. I don't know their challenges. I don't know what they go through every day. I was raised by women, so I know women to a point, but I'm not a woman. So therefore, as much as I'm an ally, I might set groups up, I might host, co-host, but the leader has to be a woman, because it can't be me standing there, 6'4" guy. We're going to be like, oh my God, who is this man telling us about our feelings? It's not going to work. I can be on the side, I can clap, I can support, but it needs to be led by the people that you're actually trying to help. And that's one of the main points. If you have a group or you have a DEI strategy, your tone of voice, your culture, and the feeling of belonging comes from our innate unconscious bias to people that look and feel like us. So, straight away, we know from the research, from prison studies, right? When you walk into a room, you naturally will go towards someone that looks and sounds like you. So even the fact that often when I go to a room or when you go to a room, if you're in tech, guess what? It's going to be just you. And it's going to be just me. So actually, people understanding that and communicating that will help them understand the way we feel. Even just going to work every day, or when I go onto the tube and I go into Liverpool Street, or I go into bank, I often will not see anyone that looks like me unless they are a ticket guy, or they're a cleaner, or they're working in a stall. They're not a VP or an SVP or a founder like me, right? It's just rare. I'm an outlier. So these things all affect people's behavior and how they feel. And sometimes seeing is believing. So having a group led by someone that's made it, that's got through with an ally, let's shout out about it. Let's talk about it. Let's celebrate it.
Thank you for just want to say that I'm shocked since the beginning of that discussion, because I thought we were far further than what you're describing.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm trying to understand how companies can actually encourage allyship.
Yeah.
What, from your perspective, are actually the pitfalls that actually make the situation almost not moving from what you're describing.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think it goes back to people don't want to be the first. People don't want to do it wrong. People don't want to make mistakes. And unfortunately, that inhibits their ability to make change. So if we think about the tone of voice of a company, and even I've done it, right? When you're hiring, you think, okay, what do I need this role to look like? You think, okay, what do they sound like? What's their abilities to do the job? What's their personality traits? Where are they from? And unfortunately, if all the hiring managers look like Rob, guess what? You're going to hire a team that looks like Rob. So what we need to do is actually not how they speak, not where they're from, what school they went to, so you can be that part of the alumni and high five that we went to the same school. You haven't got to be educated the same way. Actually, we know from data that when you diversify your board or your employees, you actually make more money. You actually have more retention. So these stats don't lie. So why are we doing it, right? It's because people often would put someone in a position that don't know what they're doing, i.e., and no disrespect to the 50 people I spoke to that run DEI, they don't really know what DEI is. They're often just female, so they go, oh, you're a woman, so you must know. They've had no training, so they've got no budget. So actually, what are you going to change? Because every application you have says, oh, we're a DEI organization. I call BS on that, because you're not. You're just saying that because it's publicly good to do it. Because when you look at your board and they're all white middle-class men, and there's a woman in HR that runs the CMO or something like that, that's a token, that's a gesture. That's absolute rubbish. When you go below that, when you think about your job applications, what's the tone of it? Like, why do you have to go to a certain university? Why do you have to have English as your first language? When this is like, even on this call, we're all from different places. We all understand each other. In the UK, Bertrand, we laugh that often when there's a black person speaking on television, and if they're from the Caribbean like I am, there's subtitles up. And it's really frustrating for us. It's infuriating because you can understand me. And even if I spoke as I spoke at home with a Jamaican accent, you would still understand me. And there's subtitles. It's archaic, old school BS. But until we have these conversations and we push through this, it really isn't going to change. But hopefully, younger people. So I speak to younger black people, and they say they don't really have the same boundaries that I had. They wear their hair in their natural way. They wear a certain dress code. And I'm like, wow. And they don't care. You know, they would actually be like, how dare you tell me how to dress? How dare you tell me how to speak? So they're coming from a new generation that hopefully is inhibited and gone through the pain that we all went through, hopefully to open doors for them. So hopefully it will change. And it's about how you educate your children. Someone asked me recently, you know, why don't you see color? And it's because when I was growing up, and it's still to this day, I have an aunt that's white. I have an uncle that's white. I have an aunt that's Indian. I have aunts from, you know, that's Welsh. My auntie lives in Wales. I have cousins in Scotland. So we are so multi-diverse culturally, racially, as a family, that I just love people because they're my family, because they respect me. And I take that to my colleagues and friends, not because I didn't see race until I went to school and was spat on, or I wasn't allowed on the bus, or I was called a racist term. I didn't know that until I was exposed to that when I left my home or left my family. So I often find that with my white friends, when they ask me questions and I try to educate them, they weren't raised like me. They were raised as race as a prominent thing. They weren't taught that actually everyone is the same, everyone's equal. They had slurs for the local shop. They had slurs for their takeaway they got. And these slurs and these ignorance are hard to shake off when you're an adult because they've heard them their whole life. So it's a tough environment, and there's so much to do, man. There's so much to do, but you know, talking about and asking those questions, right? It's the start. It's the way we need to go.
You said about allyship earlier, and I think that one of the things that if we look back to a prominent example of a lack of allyship would be Harvey Weinstein and what went on in Hollywood and how nobody stood up for the women that were abused by him.
Yeah,
I think that everybody can look at that and say, well, we don't want to go back to that place.
yeah.
And I know that people who are not like me, white, middle-aged, heterosexual, English male,
Right.
are much more likely to be sensitive to allyship through the need for having allyship. And obviously D and I departments have grown up as a result of this. But I was shocked in the news quite recently to see that lots of organizations seem to be doing away with their diversity and inclusion departments. And I mean, I personally, so do you think this is a huge retrograde step, or do you think we have outgrown those now and we don't need them?
No, I don't think it's conceivable to outgrow something we haven't truly started yet. And also, getting rid of a DEI department that you don't understand in the first place is probably a breath of fresh air because it's easier. Doing things easier in life is easier than doing things that are hard.
Absolutely.
Now, if you include the word belonging or inclusion, whatever you want to call it, it's not going to go anywhere. You have to remember that from a minority person's perspective, or from a black man's perspective, what happened to George Floyd, as horrific as it was, meant that 80% of DEI departments came from after George Floyd. So I'm 44. That incident isn't an incident to me. To me, it's my life. So being stopped by the police all the time as a child and as an adult, or in my car, or being harassed at times, or people being fearful of what I look like, is my life. It's not about George Floyd in that day. Don't get me wrong, seeing it was horrific, but to us, it's normal. So as much as it's shocking, that a few years ago, and I can name 20 other instances of that kind. It's just that one was so bad, and maybe because of COVID at the time, it propelled the world, but so much so, there's a lot of it's fake. So all of these DEI departments that aren't real, they're changing them because they don't really understand what they're doing, because they're not having real conversations. And also, sometimes it's just hard. Listen, I'm not going to go back and say about what white people have done or not done, or black people have done or not done. And there's so much confusion about racism and where it stems from. Last night, I was speaking to one of my friends I've known for 30 years, and he said to me, "Really, Co? Why are you talking about race all the time?" I'm like, "Okay, England football team. Let's look at the black players when they miss a penalty and the white players that miss. And let's look at the headlines and the newspapers. And he stopped and he said, wow, okay, I get your point. Because when he's seeing it, it's so horrible, he suppresses it. And he doesn't let it manifest into behavior because he doesn't want to acknowledge it because then he feels bad. So he said to me, as a white male, when I see this, I feel awful. Therefore, I don't want to talk about it. And when you talk about it, it makes me feel bad. So, we need to come away from feeling bad and feeling any guilt because every race can be bad and good. People are people. There's good and bad in everyone. Let's move away from that and just try and make changes and acknowledge it in the first place. Because when you think about societal racism or systematic racism, what we're doing here today is so small because when you read the newspaper or I turn on the television or I go to apply for a loan or go to a bank, there are systematical and societal challenges that I have that you won't. And you won't even see or feel that. And I don't expect you to understand it. But what you can do in your environment at work or in your peer group or friendship group, look around your group. How diverse is your group? Look around who you play the guitar with or music with. Look around your office and say, actually, am I collaborating? Do I come into my group? Do I hear their challenges? Do I understand them? How can I be an ally to you? And that's what I do. There's groups that you wouldn't think that I'd be associated with that I'm part of because I want to understand their challenges too. And often you get lots of people in the groups that are from minority group, and we have these I'm the worst minority discussions, which is it's hilarious because it's like, oh no, this was worse for me. No one's worse, and everyone's truth, remember, is subjective. So my truth is mine, yours is yours, and we're not lying. It's truth to us. So understand my truth. Don't try and live it. Don't try and be it. Just hear it. And if you get an opportunity to what I'm doing right now, all of my mentees, the Equity and Tech Group that I certify and train, people reach out and say, look, can you send me 5 CVs? Can you send me 10 CVs? And those CVs go into a pool and they're just looked at the same as all the other CVs. And half of them have got jobs. 3 of them have been promoted. One of them is now a director. Just because someone reached out to me and said, can I have a CV? Because these CVs don't get through. Because, I'll give you an example. I was working with the director and there wasn't enough rooms in the meeting room. So I was facing him, but his laptop was facing the other way. He was interviewing someone. I could hear the person, but I couldn't see them. When the interview ended, he said, oh, that person isn't going to work. And I was like, wow, they sounded great. Why? He's like, I don't know. This just didn't sound right. I didn't feel comfortable. Well, that's really odd. I said, well, I understood them really clearly. And he said, well, they just don't sound like us. And I said, interestingly, I said, well, what does us mean? And he paused. He said, well, actually, okay, you didn't sound like me. I said, well, just because I speak in a certain way doesn't mean that you can then diminish who I am who my culture is. That chap was brilliant. And he basically had a bias because of how he spoke. And he didn't realize he had that bias. So if I wasn't sat there, that person wouldn't have got another chance. This happens a lot. Unconscious bias is really powerful. But if we can acknowledge it and not get in trouble or fired or called out for it, but then understand it, then we can move forward and we can change. But everyone has that unconscious bias. Our brain does that automatically because of the amount of information that we get. We have to make fast decisions. So we can't stop unconscious bias, but we can pivot and be agile about what we think and do the right thing based on common sense. Does that make sense?
Perfectly, yeah.
Flo's question.
Yes. Flo Labrato, former guest of the show, asks, Cohen, what are your thoughts on ERGs balancing safe affinity versus being open to allies and education of allies?
Ooh, wow, that's a great
Thanks,
question.
Flo.
Yeah, I think, listen, you have to have an environment where you feel safe and a platform to be able to even do any of this stuff. But I think that, I went to a women's Salesforce Women in Tech event once where they never have men invited. And when I attended it, it was almost like a male bashing event, and even some of the females that I brought with me felt uncomfortable. So I think there's a balance. Yes, there has to be an environment where you feel safe and you feel like you can be open and secure and be free, but also you have to also have it open again for people not from that group. Otherwise, how are they going to understand the challenges of what you go through and who you are? So I think anyone could be negative and nothing. I don't think this comes from hatred. I think it comes from misunderstanding. And I think that if you get all of one group together, whether it's the lads, whether it's the girls, whatever race you are, it gets clicky, and then you get a lot of BS in that group. You need someone in there that's going to be like, hey guys or girls or whoever you are, this isn't right. This is because otherwise, if you segregate yourself from everyone else, you're causing the same problem as everyone else is doing. Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes sense to me based on some of my experiences because so like when I entered entrepreneurship, there's all of these communities for women entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And all of them are only women. And like, sure, it's kind of like a BNI thing. They're just all working together to give each other business. And that's one thing. But if we're actually going to forward the conversation of women in tech or women in leadership or things like we can't keep this in a silo. We have to open it up. And so I do think it's important to, yes, create that safety, but also when does safety become segregation?
Exactly.
And pay attention to that.
I mean, so for me, and that's why, again, right, if you don't have allyship and someone you trust, then you're not going to get in the room. Because if you're going to laugh or have judgment or not understand or have pity or sarcasm, all of these things are really hurtful for people that have felt something their whole life. You know, this isn't funny. So, you know, if you're going to say you're an ally or you want to support a group, you've got to be 100% in. Because if you're not, you're going to cause more harm than good. And that's why I appreciate with some groups, they have no allies because they've tried to have someone in, or they've put someone in the wrong place, in the wrong room. They haven't understood that it's gone wrong. It's made people feel uncomfortable, which is totally defeating the object.
Picking up on the over PC idea that we had touched on earlier in the show, about a half an hour before we came on the air, I had come across an article in my daily news feed, and I sent it to Co. And it was Walmart pulls back on DEI. Could we see more companies adopting MEI? MEI stands for merit, excellence, and intelligence. And while on the surface, that sounds reasonable, even as an ally, I'm picking up on where they're missing the point with that.
Well, I think it's like Co's example is a perfect example of how that doesn't work, because in that interview, that guy, like Co, heard the merit and the intelligence, and the other guy didn't because of his unconscious bias. So
yeah. Well, also, if I was being really pessimistic, the IQ test actually is racist in the first place. So what are you measuring IQ on? And I could go on and on, right? And listen, there is a lot around how you hire someone. So I speak to VCs at the moment around the same old board that they get to restart these companies. And we have these fractional services. We're a fractional CMO, fractional CRO, and legal. We're all different races, different sexes, etc. But our diverse board could really propel them differently and give them a different opportunity, right? They always use the same people all the time. So there is a lot around actually going through hardship, going through trials and tribulations, make you a good leader because you understand what's like to go through something that's difficult or painful or confusing, and actually makes you better at dealing with stress. So these are all good things that we all go through that we could bring to the board or bring to opportunities. But you know, how you measure something is always the problem. And every test, because they were created at a time of ignorance or misinformation or miseducation, every merit or personality trace test or education test often uses language or words that are for white or Caucasian people and nobody else, especially men. Therefore, they always score higher than everyone else. So if the testing isn't fair, and you're using that as a test, again, you're not giving us the same opportunity. So that article is the biggest BS, without swearing, frustrating thing I've seen. But I understand that, listen, I have friends that say, I don't want to hire someone just because they're a woman, or because they're black, or because they're not straight. And I'm like, no, you're not understanding the point. These people don't want to be hired because of their creed or their sexual orientation. They also want to be given the chance. And when they get that chance, they don't want to be treated differently because of that. That's the point. They're not being treated any differently from your other colleague that looks like you. That's the point here. Not given the opportunity because they've got a different sexual orientation or because they're a woman. It's like, no. Look at every single organization in the world and look at what roles the women have. It's an absolute joke. Let alone look at the roles they have and look at how they're paid. That's why people don't publicize their earnings. That's why people don't publicize their DEI stats. Because guess what? They don't have any. Or the women aren't being paid the same as men. When you think about in the UK, actually in the world, the highest suicide rate is between 25 to 35, and it's men, young men, let alone people of minorities, even higher in black men. This is a horrific stat, and you've got to think about these mental health environments are caused worse by everything we're discussing today. Because of how you're treated by your peers, by how you're treated in your job, how you're treated by, when you think about the stats around people of colour when they go to the GP or they give birth, there's higher death rates with women of colour than non-women. Like, guys, this stuff has to stop at some point because it's not helping anyone. And most people that I know do want to make a difference. They do want to make change, but we have to talk about it, like today, and not be judged, not be scared. And this is a great opportunity. So yeah, I thank all of you guys so much.
So, okay, I have a question, and I know that Joshua has a question, but it's going to take us in a little different direction. Okay, so I have this theory that in order to make change, the people have to want to make change. And so we can talk about like corporate DEI efforts and things of that nature. But like even if you get a really well-meaning leadership team who wants to do these things, and then the day-to-day values activities of the people don't match, then it doesn't matter that you have a corporate DEI initiative. It's not going to do anything. And I think this is one thing. I also think if you really have a commitment to DEI or whatever you want to call it, right? Equity and inclusion, like if what you're doing hasn't worked, don't stop. That doesn't work. Try something else like to do it. But I do think that this comes down to the people. And at the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about how it can feel really difficult to stand up as an individual and be an ally. I also think it kind of takes that person, that catalyst, to like show people that there is space and permission for that to manifest in whatever space. So whether it be a community group or an organization. And so in all of the work that you've done, have you seen any kind of similarity in these like allyship catalysts that we can maybe like encourage people? Like if you're feeling this, like say something or do something. Any advice for those people who are feeling called to do that, to say like, hey, you could be the spark in this flame?
Yeah, unfortunately, unless your leadership, really is flying that flag, you don't really have a hope. That's why all of my allies have been in secret, or they said, you can't tell anyone. Or I've even signed a NDA before because my ally was so frightened that if anyone found out that he'd help me, he would then lose his role in the business. So these things are not good, but at least they stood up and they helped me, right? But unless either the board or the chairman of the board is an ally, it doesn't work. So, me as a non-executive director in the companies that I'm on, anyone that is affiliated with that company will see me and go, wow, I now can say something. Because they know there's someone on the board that doesn't look like everyone else. And they know that I speak openly about it. So, we need people on the board from all different backgrounds and creeds and races. We need more women on the board. Only, I think, 24% of boards in the UK are diverse, and that percentage is women. And people that aren't white, I think it's even less than that. It's like 12. So with those stats, it's very hard to put your hand up and shout out, right? Because you're likely going to be shut down. But again, not because of hatred or because of everyone is racist, because they're scared. They don't know what to do. They don't know they don't know where to start. I've been doing some really cool things around just getting a board in a room and we do a round table. And I'm like, ask me anything. Ask me the most horrible thing you can think of. Ask me. I'm like, that's not offensive, but we say it like that. People don't know why can't I say coloured? Why is it black? All of these questions. But also, don't ask to touch my hair. Don't ask what I eat every day. You can't touch my hair. You can't ask what I eat, and you can't ask why I speak in the way I speak, or they're shocked how I speak, or that I've got a neuroscience degree. I could go on and on and on. These things are called microaggressions, and microaggressions are really frustrating for people from minority background or from a marginalised group, because we get it every single day, guys and girls. It's like, come on. But ask these questions in the open. I will shut them down, and we can move on. Because if I was offended or if I got upset, I wouldn't leave my house. So it's like we can all, put our big boys, pants on and let's move forward. And I guess, covering, I'm sure we'll touch on at the end, but when you start to cover who you are, or your identity, or your name, or your culture, this is when it becomes even more problematic for allyship, because they don't see you.
I want to come back to MEI briefly.
Yeah.
Co, I think I heard you say, effectively, people don't want to be hired because they're black or because they're a woman. So if I'm reading between the lines, even those benefiting from DEI initiatives probably think MEI, based on merit, excellence, and intelligence, sounds pretty good. It sounds objective, not subjective. But what I think I also heard you say is the benchmarks that are supposedly objective were built upon and subject to unconscious bias.
Exactly.
So is there a way to fix that? Is there a compromise where we can base it on merit, but the benchmarks we're using to evaluate merit for our differences?
The fact that we're even discussing that someone should get a job on merit, isn't that hilarious? Isn't that why we all have jobs? Isn't that why we all got our positions based on merit, right?
No.
Clearly not. This is what I'm saying. This is why it's laughable. And I'll give you some. There's two campaigns going on right now. It's that one of them is my name is not a typo, and the other one is my afro hair is my hair. My name is not a typo. Is if you're in the Microsoft or Google platform right now, you type in my name and it comes up as a spell check. Now, most people from marginalised groups, all of our names come up as typos, but Rob doesn't. Okay, Tim doesn't. So ask yourself why that is. So if the program or the platform is built with bias, then it has biases in it. So, for example, one of my best friends is called Nikki. She's a white female, very successful. She calls me Chan. She calls me Chan because when she hired me, she typed Cohen into Word. It came up as CHAN, and Chan is stuck forever. And it's funny, right? She calls me Chan to this day. It's funny. But when we look at the deeper meaning of that, actually, why is my name a typo? It shouldn't be. So there's a campaign right now around that. Now, also, our hair. So we get told our hair isn't part of the dress code, or it's scruffy, or it needs to be maintained. This is from school. I've been suspended from school because I wear my hair in my natural way. My children have been put into isolation because of our hair. There's a case going on right now in England where a child was expelled because they have dreadlocks in their hair. Now, these are things that are going on right now that are live, and this is why it's such a difficult thing, because if we can't even wear our hair in the natural way, we can't even type our name into the same platform as you do. Where do we start? I had an AI brand come through to me recently, a fantastic brand, and they were looking at using AI to send voice notes over LinkedIn using an algorithm. I was like, great, but what voice would you use? And also, what names could it pronounce? And he was like, we've tried it and tested it on loads of names. I'm like, great, type my name in. Guess what? It can't say it. Okay, type in 20 other names. Guess what? It can't say it. Now, this chap was an entrepreneur. He wasn't racist. He wasn't a bad person. He was just ignorant to the fact that not everyone sounds and looks like him and has different types of names. If you're going to have a global platform and product, especially with AI, we all have to have our names. We all have to have AI, the capability to look like and sound like us. Because I'm not going to send a voice note out sounding like he speaks. I'm going to sound like me. So, with all of these issues and challenges, it's very tough.
I just want to share quickly that Gloria Tabby, a friend of mine, did a great TED Talk on hair discrimination, if anybody wants to dive into that.
It's a whole nother level of subjects, a whole nother hour. Yeah. Which most people just call me like, what's up with hair? It's like, it's a big thing for us.
We only have a few minutes left, but we have a great question from the audience. So
sure.
If you could give us the high-level answer, that would be great.
Absolutely.
We have Joshua Williams asking, Co, what is your 5-year vision? What does it entail?
5-year vision in regards to what, Josh?
Let's take it as an open invitation to share with us.
D&I.
Yeah.
Where is Allyship going?
I think we're not in. It's not all like doom and gloom and negative. The fact that I'm on this platform now, I'm speaking about it, the fact that how engaged you all are, as much as you can be surprised, and that's a good thing, because then you're going to have more conversations. You're going to have conversations with your peers, even with your friends that maybe are non-white. You're going to say to them, "Hey, how do I pronounce your name? Am I pronouncing it wrong? How do you like to wear your hair? Have you felt, Co mentioned these 5 things, have they affected you? Having these conversations with your peers in your neighborhood, to your kids, will help, right? So I'm hoping that in 5 years, we're not having these same conversations. I'm hoping that the AI advances not just under the biases that it was created for, that it gives everyone access, and that, the 1,000 people that we want to get in second FY25, it's laughable. We have thousands of people from Africa and the Caribbean in tech and earning what they can earn like anywhere else in the country, right? The moment in the Caribbean, the average salary is around £12,000 a year. In Africa, it's around 18,000. The same STEM postgrad students in the UK earn £50,000. So that's a big gap, right? In wage and earning and the lifestyle you can lead. So I'm hoping in 5 years that's gone and everyone can work from anywhere, remotely, and earn that kind of wage and have that kind of lifestyle that everyone should have.
Cohen, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you for being willing to bring us along.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Where can people learn more? How can they get in touch with you?
I'm going to share a document with you guys. You can post on your page or send out just around everything we covered.
Maybe put it in a newsletter?
Yeah, some further reading, stuff like that. But you can send me an email at change@equityandtechgroup.co.uk. I also post my number on there too. Equity and Tech Group is on LinkedIn. Or if you type Cohen Leon, COHAN, LEON into LinkedIn, I'm the only Cohen Leon daily. So it's not hard to find me on LinkedIn, even though there's 60 million users. You'll find me pretty quickly. Connect with me. Happy to chat. Happy to any speaking engagements, any thought leadership. Also, we have a DEIB framework that is pretty good and robust, and we can help you with your tone of voice and really help you change and diversify the business that you're in.
Excellent. As alluded to, we now have a newsletter.
Oh, awesome.
Don't miss an episode. Get show highlights, beyond the show insights from our panel and our guests, and reminders of upcoming episodes. You can scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter. On behalf of the panelists, to our guest Cohen, and to our audience, thank you all for being a very interactive part of today's episode, and we'll see you next time on the Digital Download. Bye all.